Welcome to Illinois Lawmakers' continuing coverage of the Illinois General Assembly during the month of May. I'm Jak Tichenor along with Rich Miller of CapitalFacts.com. On your website today, the blog says optimism abounds about the budget.
It does abound. Wherever you go, whoever you talk to, if they're involved in the discussions, they're optimistic about getting something done, maybe even early, by the 30th instead of the 31st of May. And the 31st is the scheduled adjournment deadline. Right. But, you know, I mean, we'll believe it when we see it. There usually trains go off the track at least once.
At this point, what are the remaining sticking points? We know basically about what amount of money we're going to have, a good ballpark estimate for the coming year in terms of that, and then it's kind of a game of figuring out around the margins where everything fits in.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, the governor wanted to transfer pension payment obligations, start to transfer them this coming fiscal year, which begins July 1st. That would save the state several $100 million, but school districts are, you know, complaining that they'll have to raise property taxes. So they're discussing that. Local governments got a 10% haircut last year in the budget that the governor vetoed. He put the same cut into his budget proposal, and local mayors have been screaming bloody murder and do not want this cut extended for another year. So they're talking about how they deal with that. And that's, you know, that's some real money too. So,
but it's not insurmountable.
No.
Beyond the obvious, having a budget for the people of Illinois for the coming fiscal year starting July 1, what are some of the other factors below the sight lines that are why people are getting together?
The number one obstacle to getting any budget deal ever is the will to get a budget deal. And the past few years, there's been no will, either by the governor or by the Democratic leaders, to do a budget deal. That's why they did their own last year with the help of a handful of Republican House members, more than a handful. This year, there is the will. First of all, Governor Rauner has J.B. Pritzker out there, this Democratic billionaire, makes him look like us in comparison, in wealth comparison. So this guy, Pritzker, is calling Rauner a failed governor. Right? And that's all he's doing. Failed Governor Rauner, failed Governor Rauner.
So he's got to get a budget together.
Show he could actually do something. That would be nice, you know. I mean, to end his first term, and maybe his only term, we don't know, with an actual accomplishment of getting a budget, which is something every governor before him has done in 200 years of history.
And you pointed out that the Senate Republican leader, Bill Brady, really likes to get deals together.
He's a man who loves deal making, and so does Senate President John Cullerton. But then you get Speaker Madigan, right? He'd like to get out of town because, I mean, this Me Too stuff keeps blowing up around him, not to mention anything else that might come up. So he would like to get his members out of this city of Springfield.
And so it's possible that they may actually wrap up business by the 30th?
Well, I'm not going to make that prediction. I mean, others are, but I won't, because you just never know. You know, what could happen.
Well, the old joke around here is, if you're going to bet on anything, bet on nothing.
Right, always bet on nothing. But this year, I think you'd make a safe bet by betting on something will happen. Whether or not he signs it, if he does a reduction or line item vetoes, then they got to come back for a day or two to try to override him. I think there is the will to override him, though, if he doesn't sign off completely.
Rich Miller, thanks very much. Up next, a pair of veteran lawmakers give us an idea of where things stand here toward the end of May. Here to give us a big picture overview of the work remaining before adjournment on May 31st, Democratic Senator Don Harmon of Oak Park, the Senate President pro tempore. He's joined by Republican State Representative Tim Butler, who represents the capital city. Good to have you both on the program.
Glad to be back, Jak. Thank you.
What's the latest on getting a budget passed out of here? It's been optimistic, I'll put it that way, over the last few days talking to your colleagues here. They seem to be narrowing in on a revenue estimate and kind of working around the margins to get this thing done. Is it going to happen between now and the 31st? Or
I'm confident we'll pass a responsible, balanced budget before May 31st. Won't be perfect, won't be ideal, but it will work, and we'll send it off to the governor.
what are you hearing in the House Republican
Well, I think the
side?
tenor definitely is different this year than it has been over the past couple of years when we had the budget impasse. It seems the temperatures haven't quite risen as we've seen in the past, which I think is a good sign. I think there's been good discussions going on either with the leaders or through the budgeteers, as they're called. And so I kind of agree with Senator Harmon. I think we're going to see something before the end of May, most likely. And if not, I think hopefully early in June if we don't get it by the end of May.
The Senate President John Cullerton last week came out of a leaders meeting and he said, I don't want to talk about hurdles right now in terms of getting things wrapped up, but what still remains as far as what you're hearing from the budgeteers and the leadership on what still stands in the way of getting this across the finish line?
In the biggest picture sense, it really is just trying to find a way to fund the priorities that we want to fund. We will not have a rich budget by any stretch. It will be difficult for us to find adequate revenues to pay for the things that we have to pay for. So trying to close that gap, trying to ensure that we are spending only the revenue we have available and still meeting our priorities is the difficult thing to do.
Are there major differences between Republican priorities and Democrat priorities here at the Capitol?
Well, we always have our difference in priorities, but I think to Senator Harmon's point, we have a lot of pressures on the budget that are automatic, that we have to take care of the pension payments, we have to take care of Medicaid payments, and so it eats up a lot of the funding when we look at other programs that members would like to get in there. So when we're kind of quibbling over the leftover dollars, it does make it difficult sometimes, but I don't think it's an election year. I don't think we have a lot of huge differences between what we would like to get done, so hopefully it's something we can get managed here in the next week or so.
And last year, of course, there was a tax increase. There's no appetite to do that again this year, and you're going to live within the boundaries of what's revenues coming in. There is one question I have about, and I get this from our mayors and city managers, where are we with regard to that local distributive fund for government, their share of the income tax that goes back to cities and counties? It was cut by 10% last year, or in this current fiscal year. Is that going to be made permanent? The governor has indicated that's what he'd like to do.
Well, last year it was cut on paper, but we also made a change in the way the payments were made. So instead of getting 12 monthly payments last year, they ended up getting 14. We made these payments electronic, so there's no lag time. So they really didn't come out behind. I don't think there's much appetite to further cut local government funding this year. That just puts more pressure on property taxes, and none of us wants to do that.
You feel basically the same way?
Yeah, I'd like to see us ramp back where we're getting this money back to the locals if we can. I don't think we're going to see that completely happen this year, probably, but maybe we change the percentage that we're taking out right now. Would be nice, but we'll see what happens.
Senator Harmon, you've been working a number of gun bills over the last few weeks in the wake of the Parkland tragedy, and then, of course, later the shooting in Santa Fe. There seemed to be a bit of daylight yesterday between the governor and his amendatory vetoes of the legislation and his reinstitution of the death penalty in the state of Illinois. Where do things stand?
We're looking at the ingredients in the governor's amendatory veto. There are certainly pieces of that I think would enjoy broad bipartisan support. It's a question of whether the governor would entertain them in a serial fashion rather than in one lump sum bill. I'm hoping we're going to see action on the gun trafficking bill next week. I'm hoping we'll see action on some of those other ingredients without stirring the political pot of the death penalty.
That was kind of a shock to a lot of people that was being put back on the table. How did it play out in terms of how the House is looking at the Speaker, of course, had some hearings on that this week.
I attended one of the hearings for the Judiciary Committee this week that talked specifically about the death penalty, and I would say that it got some harsh reviews, especially from the members of the majority party. And there's members like myself on the Republican side that don't believe in the death penalty. So I think that's a pretty high leap to reinstitute any type of death penalty. I understand the public perception of it. It certainly, I think, probably polls very well, what the governor put in the AV, but there's a lot of folks who are opposed to the death penalty. I just think it's going to be a high bar to reach to be able to reinstitute anything.
At the end of the day, we basically did away with the death penalty here in 2011 after there were a number of people on death row who weren't we're not guilty of anything to begin with.
Exactly, and that's the impetus of where we're at today.
Where are we on gun dealer licensing now in the state of Illinois as it works through the General Assembly?
So we moved away from gun dealer licensing per se. We've included a gun dealer license certification program in a broader bill on combating illegal gun trafficking. That passed the Senate last week with a good, healthy bipartisan majority. It's before the House now. I expect they're going to take that up in committee today and on the floor next week. I hope that will be on its way to the governor's desk soon.
What's your reading on that bill?
Well, I voted against that bill in the House. I thought it was an intrusion on small business, especially as Senator Harmon and I come from different districts. Obviously, I have a downstate rural district that views the Second Amendment probably differently. I haven't looked at the new bill coming over from the Senate, but I certainly want to take a look at it to see. I know there's been some changes made to it. And, I think we're going to continue to discuss a lot of these gun-related issues. We passed a bill out of the House yesterday on the lethal order protection. So I think we're going to continue to see a lot of these issues come up.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask about that. Some refer to that as the red flag bill. If somebody says something or they see something on social media that might imply that someone is thinking of doing something violent, they can bring it to the attention of police, or police can bring it to the attention of a judge. What happens if they take it to a judge in this case? Is there some sort of time period that guns can be taken away, or?
There are time periods in the bill, and it's been the one that passed the House was a negotiated bill with some of our Republican members and the sponsor to kind of I think make it better and stronger towards those who believe in the Second Amendment. So there are some constraints in there as to how long the guns can be taken away and how gun owners can get them back and everything. So it moved forward out of the House yesterday. I think it had 80 votes in the House.
So that's broad bipartisan agreement. As you say, it was a negotiated bill. In the Senate, what do you think is going to happen there?
I expect we'll receive it warmly. It's different than the earlier versions that the Senate considered, so we'll have to take a look at it. But the reviews from Democrats and Republicans in the House suggest it's a model for the nation.
And this is always, the gun control issue is always going to be one of those tectonic plates that you see the city of Chicago, the suburbs, and then rural downstate Illinois kind of pushing back and forth. There's always going to be some tension there.
There is, but I think we need to appreciate each other's positions more. I don't know anyone who wants to abolish the Second Amendment or take guns away from law-abiding gun owners, but we want to make sure that guns don't end up in the hands of people who shouldn't have them, which is what we see in Chicago and Cook County and the more densely populated parts of the state. I really wish we could work together.
There's some action on some other bills. An industrial hemp bill has gone to the governor's desk. That's been one that has been kind of bubbling under the surface here for quite a few years. And any reading on what he's going to do?
I think the first vote on this bill was in 2011, and it went down dramatically. The federal farm bill kind of changed the dynamic on it in 2014 and allowed states to be able to take a look at industrial hemp. Illinois in the 1930s was the leading producer of industrial hemp in the United States. And so this is a real opportunity, I think, for our ag community to find a new crop to help their bottom lines, really.
I remember seeing some of the remnants of that on my grandfather's farm outside of Bloomington back in the mid '60s. So, casino gaming, there's some rumbling, and there's always some rumbling about expanded casino. I understand that there may be a hearing on some legislation next week. Any previews of what we might be looking at?
You know, the Senate has passed gaming expansion bills several times. They've landed on the rocky shores of the House. I think we'll watch and see if the House has an appetite to take that up.
The House has definitely been the holdup in the past. I think the impetus that we have is the recent U.S. Supreme Court decision on sports betting, which I think really opens up some good opportunities in Illinois for us to get involved and bring in some revenue and get involved into an area of gaming that's not allowed, that hasn't been allowed in Illinois.
Does that all have to come as a package, sports betting, expanded casino gaming, or?
I think probably so, because I think you don't get many bites at the apple when it comes to gaming in Illinois. So I think if we're going to do a bill on sports betting, there's probably going to be things in there about casinos and some of the other things we'd like to see.
Is Illinois going to move quickly on that before other states kind of beat us to the finish line on getting their structures up and running?
I hope they do. I mean, if we don't, we're going to lose out probably to some of our neighboring states.
City of Springfield, there was some talk last go around in the gaming expansion that the city of Springfield might be interested in that. Is there still an interest in that here?
I think there's an interest. It's one of those where community members, I've heard from both sides on that issue, but it's really something that I view that could help the state fairgrounds with some revenue coming in the state fairgrounds, hopefully to fix up the state fairgrounds. That's really the key behind it.
And at the end of the day, though, as you say, on the rocky shores of the House, and it's rocky over in the Senate sometimes too, because these things they can become what they call a Christmas tree bill. It kind of collapses under its own weight.
We've seen that many, many times.
Senator Harmon, appreciate your time. Representative Butler, always good to have you on the program. And up next on Illinois Lawmakers, we're going to take a look at a bipartisan, bicameral examination of the state's higher education system here on Illinois Lawmakers. Illinois lawmakers are taking a bipartisan, bicameral look at addressing enrollment issues, financial problems, a whole host of issues with the state's higher education system. And here to discuss some of the challenges and potential solutions are House Higher Education Committee Chairman Emanuel Welch, a Hillside Democrat, and Assistant Senate Republican Leader Chapin of Mahomet, a member of the Senate Higher Education Committee. Good to have you on the program, gentlemen.
Our pleasure.
A lot of issues, of course, came up during that horrendous two-year budget impasse with respect to higher education. A lot of these issues had been there for years, but they were really brought into the fore by the financial constraints that were put on universities. Tell us about how this working group has come together and what you hope to accomplish in the short term and in the long run.
Well, we've been working together now since November in a bipartisan, bicameral way in this higher education work group. And all of us wanted to get together because higher education is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is what happens in higher education really matters to our state.
Exactly right.
If we fix higher education in Illinois, we can actually lift up the entire state and our economy. And so we've been working hard and rolled up our sleeves and looking at the issues that matter, that we believe will fix the system. And we all agree that this predated the current administration and goes back several years. And so we're there sitting down trying to address a lot of structural issues.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the one nice thing, I think, if there is a bright spot to come out of this General Assembly, I personally believe it's going to be higher ed. We've worked in a very bipartisan fashion, members of both parties, both caucuses, or all four caucuses. One of the most interesting things I think we did was we called in every admissions director from all of the institutions and listened to them. Mm-hmm. So what is it you need to make Illinois work, get students back in seats here in Illinois? And we've got a package that's forthcoming, again, bipartisan package that really addresses a lot of the concerns that came to us from the bottom up. And we hope it'll be good for families. We hope it'll help put students in seats in our public institutions. But I also think it's going to help us address sort of the brain drain issue. Mm-hmm. And we want families in Illinois and students in Illinois to know we want them to stay here. And we're going to do everything we can to keep them here.
And there's one figure that comes out of this. It's really striking that we've lost over 50,000 students between 1991 and 2014. And that doesn't even take into account the problems the universities are having after this budget increase.
That's before the budget.
That's right.
Problems.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Exactly.
The budget problem is only exacerbated.
Exactly.
What is causing the brain drain from Illinois to surrounding states? We're just behind, I think, New Jersey in terms of the number of students who leave.
Jack, here's an interesting figure. We've actually, you just alluded to, we've actually been the second highest out-migrator of students in the country since the 1970s, okay? Since the 1970s. Well, that didn't matter when you had, sort of your capacity was already, your demand was already exceeding your capacity. What's changed in the last 15 years is your capacity now exceeds your demand. So at some level, this is long overdue. But again, part of our package is designed to say to those students leaving, hey, wait, we want you here. We're no longer going to let these surrounding states come in and poach you. We're going to provide packages and incentives to keep you here. And again, I think a little bit also on the just ease of access, quite a bit of the program is designed to help families and parents make decisions in a little bit easier way.
So part of the problem we're dealing with from a substantive standpoint is the pension issue. You can trace a lot of what's happening in higher ed to the pension issue. You know, with the ramp in the late 90s, early 2000s, the state's contribution to the pension system grew, and where were they pinching from? That was higher ed. What was our universities doing in order to make up that lost income? Raising tuition. With the higher tuition, not giving our students the financial aid packages that these out-of-town colleges and universities were doing, has led to this issue really being in the forefront. And what we have to do, our challenge now is to create a system that's going to allow our universities to give competitive packages where a mom will say, you can stay right here. You'll be close to home. And I think we're going to put some good stuff out there that you'll see will help get our kids back.
One of the things we heard from the admissions directors when we met with them is, when Indiana State, Indiana, Michigan State, Iowa, Mizzou come in, they'll say, here's your award, and it's for 4 years. You don't have to worry about it. But Illinois, those guys, you have to reapply every year. You might not get it. Yeah. So one of the things we're looking at, and I think is going to happen this session, will be to transform the existing MAT program into a 4-year award where those students get prioritization and returning. And that way, when families sit down with admissions directors, they're going to have that same certainty that's being offered. And that's one of the biggest things where we're getting outcompeted, dirty rushed, if you will, by their surrounding states and competitor states.
So the 4-year MAP, an institutional match, we've also talked about, the universities matching in terms of merit-based aid. These are things that'll help compete with the Alabamas who are coming in and giving these huge financial packages to our students and keep them close to home. I don't care what you say. Students, do want to be close to their families.
And it's been kind of the perfect storm of problems. I mean, we've had, after the highs of the late 80s and early 90s, we've had a declining number of 18-year-olds in the population to start with. We had a situation a couple of years back when student loan debt actually exceeded credit card debt for the first time. All of these things, and then, of course, the budget impasse.
Right. The budget, I like to say, higher ed was on the precipice, and then the budget impasse just sort of pushed them over the edge. But look, let's go forward, not backwards. The great thing here, and I'm really excited about it, I think we've got a good package, a bipartisan package, and we're going to start turning this ship.
We came up with a term, aim high, and it actually stands for something. And that's our goal. We want to aim high, get our higher education system back to the best in the country.
That's right.
It was there in the mid-90s. That wasn't too long ago, and we believe we can get back there.
You, of course, Senator Rose, have been working with your colleague, Representative Dan Brady from the Bloomington area, home of Illinois State University, kind of kickstarting the discussion back in the fall with the Higher Education Strategic Center of Excellence bill. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we knew we had to do something, and we threw that out there. We knew that it wasn't perfect. We knew it was going to have some opposition here and there, but we also knew that we had to start the conversation. But rather than make it about that bill, what I'm pleased with is it did start that conversation. We brought a lot of great people into it. It's been very productive, and I think it's not going to end with this package either. I think we're going to keep working on it as through the summer and fall. And there's no single thing that brought us to this point, but our package is pretty comprehensive, and I'm really excited about it.
I'm often asked by faculty and people in the communities, are you looking at something in the long term that would bring Illinois into sort of a state system? You have the SIU system, the U of I system, and you have the directional universities who all have their independent boards of trustees.
Well, as a work group, what we did was we identified what we call the low-hanging fruit, some things we think we can get done sooner than later. And we've agreed amongst ourselves there's some tougher issues that we have to handle. Those are our long-term goals, but we're going to continue to work in this bipartisan, bicameral way because we're going to have to get to those tough issues. And we've identified quite a few that we believe in the long term is going to be essential to us keeping Illinois on the right track.
So I've filed a bill to consolidate the Illinois Board of Higher Education and the Illinois Community College Board and the Illinois Students Commission into one agency. We need, in my opinion, one sort of traffic cop directing, how we're going to go with our higher educational missions. But that is a little bit more of a long-term prospect, and I think we had a lot of short-term and really, I would almost call triage needs to get our universities going in the interim.
And one of the things we did find out is that when we were the best in the country in the 90s, the Board of Higher Education had some teeth.
Yeah.
So how do we return teeth to IBHE?
Has it kind of taken a backseat role in recent years? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, they don't have much teeth.
Yeah, there was a policy change in the early to mid 90s that took away some of the IBHE's teeth, and then people became empire builders. And what happened is we built out too much capacity during the exact same time frame when you had 50,000 less students demanding seats, and that is a large part how we got here. The question of how you go back and sort of put some teeth back into it is a much longer term discussion I think we're looking forward to over the summer.
You can imagine two lawyers, Democrat, Republican. We have some great discussions.
Well,
But it's all for the right reasons, right?
It's all good. It's all good.
But we just saw what happened with K through 12 school funding reform as a result of great bipartisan, great bicameral discussions.
Jack, I'm glad you mentioned that because honestly, I wanted to put this into motion a couple years ago. The truth of the matter is that the K-12 took center stage, as it should.
It should have.
But now that that's behind us, I think it's time we sort of have the same thoughtful, and again, time-consuming, but thoughtful policy discussion that might take a year or two to get to that sort of long-term goals. But I think I couldn't be more, I think I can speak for our whole group. I think we're pretty happy with the short-term package we're putting forward.
It's amazing that if you took a survey, most people don't rank higher education high up on the list of things we should be focusing on. But if you understand what it does for the economy of your state, it should be one of the top things we talk about.
Having a highly skilled, highly trained workforce is the key to our state.
And we just saw, there was a U of I study last year on the impact, the economic impact of that budget impasse. We lost 7,500 higher education jobs, over $1 billion in economic activity. So that's another impact on the local economies of all these communities. Gentlemen, thanks very much. We appreciate your time and your expertise and the good work behind the scenes that's getting done on this issue.
Thanks,
that's it for this edition of Illinois Lawmakers. We will be back next week to cover what we hope will be the final days of the spring session of the Illinois General Assembly.
We hope so too.
Thank you so much.
My wife does.
So long from Springfield.